Section 40 of the World's Best Orations, Volume 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Kari Burns. It will be observed that all the questions to be decided by this commission are to be contained in the written objections. Until those objections are read and filed, their contents must be unknown and the issues raised by them undescribed. But whatever they are submitted to the decision of the commission. The duty of interpreting this law and of giving a construction to the Constitution and existing laws is vested in the Commission, and I hold that we have no right or power to control in advance, by our construction, their sworn judgment as to the matters which they are to decide. We would defeat the very object of the bill should we invade the essential power of judgment of this commission and establish a construction in advance and bind them to it. It would, in effect, be giving to them a mere mock power to decide by leaving them nothing to decide. Mr. President, there are certainly very good reasons why the concurrent action of both houses should be necessary to reject a vote. It is that feature of this bill which has my heartiest concurrence, for I will frankly say that the difficulties which have oppressed me most in considering this question a year or more ago, before any method had been devised, arose from my apprehensions of the continued absorption of undue power over the affairs of the states. And I here declare that the power and the sole power of appointing the electors is in the state and nowhere else. The power of ascertaining whether the state has executed that power justly and according to the Constitution and laws is the duty which is cast upon the two houses of Congress. Now, if under the guise or pretext of judging of the regularity of the action of a state or its electors, the Congress or either house may interpose the will of its members in opposition to the will of the state, the act will be one of usurpation and wrong, although I do not see where is the tribunal to arrest and punish it except the great tribunal of an honest public opinion. But, sir, that tribunal, though great, though in the end certain, is yet ofttimes slow to be awakened to action, and therefore I rejoice when the two houses agree that neither of them shall be able to reject the vote of a state which is without contest arising within that state itself, but that the action of both shall be necessary to concur in the rejection. If either house may reject, or by dissenting cause a rejection, then it is the power of either house to overthrow the electoral colleges or the popular vote and throw the election upon the House of Representatives. This, it is clear to me, cannot be lawfully done unless no candidate has received a majority of the votes of all the electors appointed. The sworn duty is to ascertain what persons have been chosen by the electors, and not to elect by Congress. It may be said that the Senate would not be apt to throw the election into the House. Not so, Mr. President. Look at the relative majorities of the two houses of Congress as they will be after the 4th of March next. It is true there will be a numerical majority of the members of the Democratic Party in the House of Representatives, but the states represented will have a majority as states of the Republican Party. If the choice were to be made after March 4th, then a Republican Senate, by rejecting or refusing to count votes, could of its own motion throw the election into the House, which, voting by states, would be in political accord with the Senate. The House of Representatives, like the present House in its political complexion, composed of a numerical majority and having also a majority of the states of the same party, would have the power then to draw the election into its own hands. Mr. President, either of these powers would be utterly dangerous and in defeat of the object and intent of the constitutional provisions on this subject. Sir, this was my chief objection to the 22nd Joint Rule. Under that rule, either House of Congress, without debate, without law, without reason, without justice, could, by the sheer exercise of its will or its caprice, disfranchise any state in the Electoral College. Under that rule, we lived and held 3 presidential elections. In January 1873, under a resolution introduced by the honorable senator from Ohio, Mr. Sherman, and adopted by the Senate, the Committee on Privileges and Elections, presided over by the honorable senator from Indiana, Mr. Morton, proceeded to investigate the elections held in the states of Louisiana and Arkansas and inquired whether these elections had been held in accordance with the Constitution and laws of the United States and the laws of said states, and sent for persons and papers and made thorough investigation, which resulted in excluding the electoral votes of Louisiana from the count. See report number 417, 3rd session, 42nd Congress. The popular vote was then cast, and it was cast at the mercy of a majority in either branch of Congress who claimed the right to annul it by casting out states until they should throw the election into a Republican House of Representatives. I saw that dangerous power then, and because I saw it then, am I so blind, am I so without principle in my action, that I should ask for myself a dangerous power that I refuse to those who differ from me in opinion? God forbid. This concurrence of the 2 houses to reject the electoral votes of a state was the great feature that John Marshall sought for in 1800. The Senate then proposed that either house should have power to reject a vote. The House of Representatives, under the lead of John Marshall, declared that they should concur to reject the vote, and upon that difference of opinion, the measure fell and was never revived. In 1824, the bill prepared by Mr. Van Buren contained the same wholesome principle and provided that the 2 houses must concur in the rejection of a vote. Mr. Van Buren reported this bill in 1824. It was amended and passed, and as far as I can find from the record, without a division of the Senate. It was referred in the House of Representatives to the Committee on the Judiciary, and it was reported back by Mr. Daniel Webster without amendment to the Committee of the whole House, showing their approval of the bill, and that principle is thoroughly incorporated in the present measure and gives to me one of the strong reasons for my approval. Mr. President, this bill is not the product of any one man's mind, but it is the result of careful study and frequent amendment. Mutual concessions, modifications of individual preferences were constantly and necessarily made in the course of framing such a measure as it now stands. My individual opinions might lead me to object to the employment of the judicial branch at all, of engrafting even to any extent political power upon the judicial branch or its members, or confiding to them any question even quasi-political in its character. To this I have expressed and still have disinclination, but my sense of the general value of this measure and the necessity for the adoption of a plan outweighed my disposition to insist upon my own preferences as to this feature. At first, I was disposed to question the constitutional power to call in the 5 justices of the Supreme Court, but the duty of ascertaining what are the votes, the true votes under the Constitution, having been imposed upon the Commission, the methods were necessarily discretionary with the 2 houses. Any and every aid that intelligence and skill combined can furnish may be justly used when it is appropriate to the end in view. Why, sir, the members of the Supreme Court have in the history of this country been employed in public service entirely distinct from judicial function. Here lately the Treaty of Washington was negotiated by a member of the Supreme Court of the United States, the venerable and learned Mr. Justice Nelson of New York, was nominated by the President and confirmed by the Senate as one of the Joint High Commission. Chief Justice Jay was sent in 1794, while he was Chief Justice of the United States, as Minister Plenipotentiary to England, and negotiated a treaty of permanent value and importance to both countries. He was holding court in the city of Philadelphia at the time that he was nominated and confirmed, as is found by reference to his biography, and, without vacating a seat upon the bench, he went to England, negotiated the treaty which has since borne his name, and returned to this country in the spring of the following year. His successor was Chief Justice Rutledge, and the next to him was Chief Justice Oliver Ellsworth. He, while holding the high place of Chief Justice, was nominated and confirmed as Minister Plenipotentiary to Spain. By a law of Congress, the Chief Justice of the United States is ex officio the President of the Board of Regents of the Smithsonian Institution. Mr. Morton, I should like to ask the Senator, if it does not interrupt him, whether he regards the 5 judges acting on this commission as acting in their character as judges of the Supreme Court, if that is their official character, and that this bill simply enlarges their jurisdiction in that respect. Mr. Bayard, certainly not, Mr. President. They are not acting as judges of the Supreme Court, and their powers and their jurisdiction as judges of the Supreme Court are not in any degree involved. They are simply performing functions under the government not inconsistent by the Constitution or the law or the policy of the law with the stations which they now hold. So I hold that the employment of one or more of the Supreme Court judges in the matter under discussion was appropriate legislation. We have early and high authority in the majorities in both House and Senate in the Bill of 1800, in both of which houses a bill was passed creating a commission similar to that proposed by this bill and calling in the Chief Justice of the United States as the chairman of the Grand Committee, as they called it then, a commission as we term it now. As has been said before, many of the senators and members of the Congress of 1800 had taken part in the convention that framed the Constitution, and all were its contemporaries, and one of the chief actors in the proceedings on the part of the House of Representatives was John Marshall of Virginia, who 1 year afterward became the Chief Justice of the United States, whose judicial interpretations have since that time clad the skeleton of the Constitution with muscles of robust power. Is it not safe to abide by such examples? And I could name many more, and some whom my respect is due for other and personal reasons. In the debate of 1817, in the case of the disputed vote of Indiana in 1820, in the case of Missouri, and again in 1857, in the case of Wisconsin, I find an array of constitutional lawyers who took part in those debates, among them the most distinguished members of both political parties, concurring in the opinion that by appropriate legislation, all causes of dispute on this all-important matter of counting the electoral vote could be and ought to be adjusted satisfactorily. Why, sir, even the dictum of Chancellor Kent that has been read here with so much apparent confidence by the honorable senator from Indiana is itself expressed to be his opinion of the law in the absence of legislation on the subject. Mr. President, there were other objections to this bill, one by the honorable senator from Indiana. He denounced it as a compromise. I have gone over its features, and I have failed to discover, nor has the fact yet been stated in my hearing, wherein anything is compromised. What power of the Senate is relinquished? What power of the House is relinquished? What power that both should possess is withheld? I do not know where the compromise can be, what principle is surrendered. This bill intends to compromise nothing in the way of principle, to compromise no right, but to provide an honest adjudication for the rights of all. Where is it unjust? Whose rights are endangered by it? Who can foretell the judgment of this commission upon any question of law or fact? Sir, there is no compromise in any sense of the word, but there is a blending of feeling, a blending of opinions in favor of right and justice. But, sir, if it were a compromise, what is there in compromise that is discreditable either to men or to nations? This very charter of government under which we live was created in a spirit of compromise and mutual concession. Without that spirit, it never would have been made, and without a continuance of that spirit, it will not be prolonged. Sir, when the Committee on Style and Revision of the Federal Convention of 1787 had prepared a digest of their plan, they reported a letter to accompany the plan to Congress, from which I take these words as being most applicable to the bill under consideration. And thus the Constitution which we now present is the result of a spirit of amity and of that mutual deference and concession which the peculiarity of our political situation rendered indispensable. The language of that letter may well be applied to the present measure, and had the words been recalled to my memory before the report was framed, I cannot doubt that they would have been adopted as part of it to be sent here to the Senate as descriptive of the spirit and of the object with which the committee had acted. But, sir, the honorable senator also stated, as a matter deterring us from our proper action on this bill, that the shadow of intimidation had entered the halls of Congress, and that members of this committee had joined in this report and presented this bill under actual fear of personal violence. Such a statement seems to me almost incredible. I may not read other men's hearts and know what they have felt, nor can I measure the apprehension of personal danger felt by the honorable senator. It seems to me incredible. Fear, if I had it, had been the fear of doing wrong in this great juncture of public affairs, not the fear of consequences of doing right. Had there been this intimidation tenfold repeated to which the senator has alluded, and of which I have no knowledge, I should have scorned myself had I hesitated one moment in my onward march of duty on this subject. Hate's yell, or envy's hiss, or folly's bray. What are they to a man who, in the face of events such as now confront us, is doing that which his conscience dictates him do? It has been more than 100 years since a great judgment was delivered in Westminster Hall in England by one of the great judges of our English-speaking people. Lord Mansfield, when delivering judgment in the case of the king against John Wilkes, was assailed by threats of popular violence of every description, and he has placed upon record how such threats should be met by any public man who sees before him the clear star of duty and trims his bark only that he may follow it through darkness and through light. I will ask my friend from Missouri if he will do me the favor to read the extract to which I have alluded. Mr. Cockrell read as follows. But here let me pause. It is fit to take some notice of the various terrors hung out, the numerous crowds which have attended and now attend in and about the hall, out of all reach of hearing what passes in court, and the tumults which, in other places, have shamefully insulted all order and government. Audacious addresses in print dictate to us from those they call the people the judgment to be given now and afterward upon the conviction. Reasons of policy are urged from danger to the kingdom by commotion and general confusion. Give me leave to take the opportunity of this great and respectable audience to let the whole world know all such attempts are vain. I pass over many anonymous letters I have received. Those in print are public, and some of them have been brought judicially before the court. Whoever the writers are, they take the wrong way. I will do my duty unawed. What am I to fear? That mendax infamia from the press which daily coins false facts and false motives? The lies of calumny carry no terror to me. I trust that my temper of mind and the color and conduct of my life have given me a suit of armor against these arrows. If, during this king's reign, I have ever supported his government and assisted his measures, I have done it without any other reward than the consciousness of doing what I thought right. If I have ever opposed, I have done it upon the points themselves, without mixing in party or faction, and without any collateral views. I honor the king and respect the people, but many things acquired by force of either are, in my account, objects not worth ambition. I wish popularity, but it is that popularity which follows, not that which is run after. It is that popularity which, sooner or later, never fails to do justice to the pursuit of noble ends by noble means. I will not do that which my conscience tells me is wrong upon this occasion to gain the huzzas of thousands, or the daily praise of all the papers which come from the press. I will not avoid doing what I think is right, though it should draw on me the whole artillery of libel, all that falsehood and malice can invent, or the credulity of a deluded populace can swallow. I can say with a great magistrate upon an occasion and under circumstances not unlike, ego hoc nemo semper fui, ut invidium virtute partum gloriam non invidium gustarum. The threats go further than abuse. Personal violence is denounced. I do not believe it. It is not the genius of the worst men of this country in the worst of times. But I have set my mind at rest. The last end that can happen to any man never comes too soon if he falls in support of the law and liberty of his country, for liberty is synonymous to law and government. Such a shock, too, might be productive of public good. It might awake the better part of the kingdom out of that lethargy which seems to have benumbed them, and bring the mad part back to their senses, as men intoxicated are sometimes stunned into sobriety. Burroughs Report No. 4, pages 2561 to 3. Mr. Bayard. Mr. President, in the course of my duty here as a representative of the rights of others, as a chosen and sworn public servant, I feel that I have no right to give my individual wishes, prejudices, interests, undue influence over my public action. To do so would be to commit a breach of trust in the powers confided to me. It is true I was chosen a senator by a majority only, but not for a majority only. I was chosen by a party, but not for a party. I represent all the good people of the state which has sent me here. In my office as a senator, I recognize no claim upon my action in the name and for the sake of party. The oath I have taken is to support the Constitution of my country's government, not the fiat of any political organization, even could its will be ascertained. In sessions preceding the present, I have adverted to the difficulty of attending the settlement of this great question, and have urgently besought action in advance at a time when the measure adopted could not serve to predicate its results to either party. My failure then gave me great uneasiness and filled me with anxiety, and yet I can now comprehend the wisdom concealed in my disappointment, for in the very emergency of this hour, in the shadow of the danger that is drawn so nigh to us, has been begotten in the hearts of American senators and representatives and the American people a spirit worthy of the occasion, born to meet these difficulties, to cope with them, and, God willing, to conquer them. Animated by this spirit, the partisan is enlarged into the patriot. Before it, the lines of parties sink into hazy obscurity, and the horizon which bounds our view reaches on every side to the uttermost verge of the great republic. It is a spirit that exalts humanity, and imbued with it the souls of men soar into the pure air of unselfish devotion to the public welfare. It lighted with a smile the cheek of Curtius as he rode into the gulf. It guided the hand of Aristides as he sadly wrote upon the shell the sentence of his own banishment. It dwelt in the frozen earthworks of Valley Forge, and from time to time it has been an inmate of these halls of legislation. I believe it is here today, and that the present measure was born under its influence. End of section 40.